Elite Facts presents
14 athletes who have serious mental disorders.
14.
Delante West. Back in 2008, it was confirmed by Delante West that he was battling depression and bipolar disorder. West says, quote, "It's been haunting me my whole life, self-destructive behavior. Everything is going good for me, being on a great team where anything less than a championship is unacceptable this year, getting a new contract, being in a good situation. When everything is on the upside, I'm feeling the worst."
13.
JeanClaude Van Damme. Legendary action star and professional mixed martial artist JeanClaude Van Damme was diagnosed with bipolar disorder back in 1998. Van Damme went on record to say that, quote, "I'm not perfect. I'm an extreme bipolar and I'm taking medication for this. When I was young, I was suffering those swing moods. In the morning, the sky was blue when I was going to school, and to me, the sky was black. I was so sad."
12.
Ronnie OSullivan. Regarded as the most talented snooker player of all time, OSullivan is as well known for his battles off the table as those on it. OSullivan's moods at tournaments and around the table have been constantly analyzed by commentators, while he walked out of a match with Stephen Hendry in York in 2006 at its midway point.
11.
Ricky Williams. Needless to say, there's a lot of pressure that comes with being a professional athlete. This is especially true if you are a young athlete who hasn't been competing in front of crowds for all that long. After being drafted by the New Orleans Saints, 21-year-old Ricky Williams said that, at the time, he felt as if he had, quote, "got his coach fired and let an entire city down," describing the experience as, quote, "horrific." An immensely shy person, Williams was never able to share his feelings and fell into depression as a result. It was not until he was diagnosed with social anxiety disorder that Williams began to understand and overcome his problems.
10.
Frank Bruno. During the 1990s, alongside Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield, former WBC World Heavyweight Champion Frank Bruno was one of the big names in the heavyweight division that made boxing so entertaining. Bruno had several fantastic bouts against the likes of Oliver McCall, Joe Bugner, Mike Tyson, and Lennox Lewis. Bruno was immensely popular in Britain and would eventually retire from active competition in 1996 following a defeat at the hands of Mike Tyson at the MGM Grand. After struggling with depression for a number of months, Bruno was taken to the hospital in 2003 and doctors diagnosed him with bipolar disorder.
9.
Ricky Hatton. Ricky Hatton is a former WBA, IBF, IBO, and the Ring welterweight champion of the world. Hatton was widely regarded as one of the best boxers in the world and was loved in Britain. But his first career defeat came at the hands of Floyd Mayweather Jr., and it shattered the world champion. He never looked the same again, and after being floored in the second round in a fight against Manny Pacquiao, Hatton called time on his boxing career after 45 wins and 2 losses. It was those 2 defeats which sent Hatton into depression. He went into rehab in 2010 to try and overcome his alcohol and depression struggles.
8.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Next up, we have one of the biggest stars in Hollywood and a WWE superstar, Dwayne Johnson, or The Rock as he's better known to his fans. Now, before you all go off about wrestling being fake, scripted, or whatever, we are not referring to him as an athlete in that sense. Prior to his WWE days, Johnson started out as a college footballer, but soon turned his attention to wrestling, where he became one of the pivotal figures of the Attitude Era. The Rock made his Hollywood acting debut in 2002, raking in $5.5 million, a world record for an actor making his screen debut. Johnson revealed in 2014 that he has had 3 bouts of serious depression and told the press that they could strike again.
7.
Gary Speed. Only David James and Ryan Giggs had played more Premier League games than Gary Speed when he retired. The Wales international was capped 85 times by his country and played for Leeds United, Everton, Newcastle United, Bolton Wanderers, and Sheffield United in a 22-year career. Speed was managing the Welsh national team in 2011 when he was found having hanged himself in his own home at the age of 42. Speed was said to have been suffering with depression, but hadn't let his family or friends know of the problems.
6,
Herschel Walker. Next up, we have the former NFL player turned professional mixed martial artist, Herschel Walker. Many years following his inevitable retirement, he went public with his complex mental disorder. Herschel has had to struggle with dissociative identity disorder, or DID, characteristic feature of which is being under the influence of multiple distinct personalities or identities, preventing the sufferer from acting like himself. He received treatment, and today he proudly tells the world about his greatest achievement.
5,
Michael Phelps. One of the most decorated Olympians of all time, Michael Phelps is an Olympic gold medalist American swimmer who over the course of his career has won a total of 22 medals. However, he went through some tough times at an early age. His mother revealed that Michael was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. His struggles with ADHD disrupted his schoolwork when he was 9 years old, but he overcame the disorder with personally prescribed medication. Swimming also played a huge part in managing the disorder.
4,
David Beckham. One of the biggest names in soccer and one of the most celebrated athletes in the world for his sports skill, former English footballer David Beckham is also one of the most handsome sportspersons of all time, or so I'm told. As it turns out, Beckham himself came out and publicly admitted that he suffers from obsessive-compulsive disorder, or OCD, and accepts he has an addiction to keep everything perfect and clean. Now keep in mind, he used to play soccer, one of the messiest sports out there, that more often than not would lead to players getting covered in mud. That must have made him insane considering his condition. Despite his efforts to break his cycle of repetitive behavior, he is unable to stop. He needs everything in a straight line or in pairs. His house has 3 fridges where everything is systematically coordinated down either side.
3,
John Madden. Former NFL player, Oakland Raiders head coach, football video game magnate, and a top broadcaster analyst for NFL games, John Madden is one of the biggest names in NFL history. He also suffers from a fear of flying, also referred to as aerophobia, aviatophobia, aviophobia, and pteromerhanophobia. He once suffered a panic attack on a plane and says that his fear of flying actually stems from his claustrophobia rather than an actual fear of flying or heights.
2,
Serena Williams. When you think about tennis in general, one of the first names that comes to mind is Serena Williams. But her successful career wasn't enough to keep her out of the hole of depression. A long injury layoff put Serena in a deep depression she would have to overcome. This tends to happen with most athletes who sustain a career-threatening or career-halting injury.
1,
Ronda Rousey. As tough as we all know Ronda is, and believe us, if you followed her through her early judo career and time with Strikeforce, you know how tough she really is. Depression still got to her early in her career. A lack of goals and nothing to drive her are what pushed her into the depression. But she didn't give up on herself, and she searched for a way out. MMA ultimately helped her recover from it. Unfortunately, MMA would eventually lead her back to depression following her first loss to Holly Holm in 2015. And that's our list. But before we end this video, we just want to say that if you suffer from any mental disorders, like the ones we've discussed, please don't hesitate to talk with someone about it or seek advice or help. Believe us when we say it's better than bottling everything up. Well, thank you for watching, and please remember to subscribe and tap the bell button to be notified when new videos are uploaded. Thanks for watching.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more Elite Facts.